Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this session of the Board of Revision to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Mark Boreski. I am chairing the panel today. I'm also the chair of the Board of Revision. And with me on the panel today are Brent McIntyre and Marla Billinghurst. Our secretary today is Belen Rojo, and the assessor is Candace Wright. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note, you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called. When it is your turn, you will be admitted to the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Municipal Board, the Manitoba Municipal Board, if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each application following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Today, we will be hearing items 3 through 7 on our docket today, the first two having been withdrawn. Ms. Rojo, could you please affirm the assessors and the applicants?
Madam Assessor, please state your full name.
Candace Wright.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Madam Applicant, please state your full name.
Crystal Barr.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, well, we will then turn to the assessor first to provide evidence. Ms. Wright, when you're ready, could you please do so?
Thank you. The subject property is roll number 0608175300. This is 70 Champlain Street. It's a one-story house in the Norwood East neighborhood, built in 1952 with an effective year built of 1972. The living area is 1,248 square feet. There is a full basement with basement finish, 1.5 bathrooms, and central air conditioning. There was previously a fireplace in the house, but we were made aware that it has been decommissioned, so that has been removed, and we're currently assessing the house with 0 fireplaces. And there's a multiple car detached garage. The lot area is 7,197 square feet, And the 2023 assessment for this property is $401,000, which works out to $321.31 per square foot. The property did recently sell. The sale came through land titles a little bit after our reference date, but the actual sale date listed on MLS was March 22nd of 2021, and that sale was for $441,200. I have 4 comparable properties here that are all 1 stories in the Norwood East neighborhood. The year built ranges from 1940 to 1953. The effective year built ranges from 1953 to 1970. The living area ranges from 1,020 square feet to 1,316 square feet. Comparables 1 to 3 have full basements, and comparable number 4 has a full part area basement. All have some basement finish. The first 3 are closer to being fully finished, and then comparable number 4 has a partially finished basement. All comparables have 2 bathrooms, central air conditioning, and 1 fireplace. All have detached garages, with comparables 1 and 4 being single car detached garages, and comparable 2 and 3 have multiple car detached garages. The lot size ranges from 4,857 square feet to 8,487 square feet. Comparable 2 is located on a bus route and has light traffic. And comparable number 4 is also located on a bus route, and it has a commercial adjacent land influence. The sale prices for these properties range from $310,000 to $410,000. Time adjusted sale prices range from $330,200 to $410,000, and the time adjusted sale price per square foot ranged from $311.55 to $361.27. So I feel that based on these 4 comparables, as well as the subject sale, that the current 2023 assessment of $401,000 is supported. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Applicant, do you have some questions of the assessor about the information that she has presented?
Yes, we did appeal this back in October of 2021. And did you review any of that meeting from that time frame?
No, we do not, because every hearing is what's called law, a hearing de novo, meaning that it is new and things that were presented perhaps before are not material. It's just what gets presented today that we look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions about what the assessor has presented?
No.
All right. I'll turn then to the panel members for questions. Mr. McIntyre, do you have questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Billinghurst?
I have no questions.
The question I have is, you've got 2 comps that are on Champlain, 104, 56. Those, from looking at the map, are quite close together. Enfield, a little bit farther away. And the 2 on Enfield are, I guess, fairly far apart. Is there any substantial difference between the way that the market would perceive Enfield versus Champlain? I mean, you're obviously saying that these are relatively comparable, but just location-wise, is there any significant difference between those streets?
I would say that Enfield is a busier street, closer, especially comparable number 4 at 298 Enfield. It's pretty much right at the corner of, I believe it's Marion and Dismuron. So it does have that commercial influence for their apartment buildings and some businesses near it, as well as just the traffic on Enfield, I would say would be higher than Champlain. So yes, I would feel that those 2 comparables would have those external influences that Champlain Street would not.
Is the fact that the 2 on, let me see, what Champlain, the other 2 on Champlain are quite a bit smaller in size.
Yes.
What is the significance of that?
I mean, typically a smaller house, so they're both about roughly 200 square feet smaller. I mean, I would assume that the market would pay slightly less for a smaller house. So that would be, the subject would be superior in that regard, that there's that 200 square feet of extra living area that those two comparables don't have.
And the lot size
Yes.
is smaller for the comparables. Just looking at the map here.
Yeah.
What accounts for such a substantial difference? Is it just an oddity of the subdivision along that street, or what?
Sorry for the differences in the lot sizes.
In the lot sizes, yes.
Yeah, I'm honestly not too sure why the subject lot. You can kind of tell from the map it's tiny, but it does look like it's slightly wider than the two comparables. I'm not too sure why that would be, why it was subdivided in that way.
All right, those are all my questions.
Thank you.
So then we will turn to the applicant, and could you please give us your evidence?
Yes, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to hear us today. So we moved into this house just over a year ago, April of 2021. And 2 months later, on June 2021, we received a new assessed value from the city of Winnipeg, which went from $324,000 to $364,000 due to interior alterations. So we appealed this decision as we did not do any interior alterations. And we further proved that the kitchen was original from 1952, the year the house was built, as well as no new floors, a pieced together older garage. And by pieced together, I mean the previous owner actually used recycled material and freezer panels. So I wouldn't call it even a multi-garage. So it's a very older garage, and other houses in the neighborhood have newer garages. And then on October 8th, 2021, the Board of Revision brought the assessment down to $330,000, as we did a virtual meeting and actually provided visual evidence of the original kitchen, older floors, etc. Then 3 months after the agreed upon value, we received another letter from the City of Winnipeg Assessment and Taxation Department stating the proposed value is now $401,000, up $70,000 just after 3 months of our appeal, noting this is due to the COVID-19 pandemic and is also reflecting the current characteristics and physical condition. Our house would be the highest assessed on our block with no interior alterations and an old pieced together garage, also adjacent to St. Mary's Road with an apartment down the block and Lou King Automotive close by. Under provincial legislation, all properties in the city of Winnipeg are reassessed every 2 years to ensure assessments keep pace with changing market values. I feel the value is based on too short a period of time, 3 months from the last agreed upon value, 3 months with a $70,000 increase, more than all our neighbors, and just after our appeal that we proved our house is not new and compares with other houses in our neighborhood. And may also mention that it is an unprecedented time as well with the pandemic. Families are already struggling to keep up with high inflation rates and food and gas prices. And the City of Winnipeg has previously determined real estate valuation assessments on a number of factors that combine to produce a much fairer and more stable valuation of property upon which taxation is determined. For example, what is the age and size of the structure? What condition is it in? Has it been modified or renovated? I personally do not feel it's fair to determine valuation on a short period of time, the pandemic, which is ever changing. And according to Stuart Elston, former president of the Manitoba Real Estate Association, he said a shortage of properties for sale is one of the main reasons for the decline Manitoba housing market sees, and peak levels from total sales are actually down over 27% compared to April of 2021. This shows the housing market is already in a state of decline. This is why I feel the house assessment should be based on a multitude of factors and not solely based on the pandemic, which we've all suffered enough, some physically, emotionally, and I ask, please not make it more financially. We are asking to bring the assessment back down to the Board of Revision assessment on October of 2021. We feel this was fair and reasonable, which is based on the age of our house, no alterations, and in alignment with other houses in our area. Thank you for taking the time to listen today.
Welcome. Ms. Wright, do you have questions of the applicant about her evidence?
Yeah, so you mentioned several kind of issues with the house. Obviously, you would have been aware of the kitchen when you purchased the house. Were there any issues that came up after you took possession of the house that you weren't aware of when you had purchased the house?
We didn't take that much time to look at the house. As you know, like when realtors bring you in, you really have about 10 minutes. So we didn't even get a chance to look at the garage. That would probably be the main one, is the garage.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Ms. Wright?
No, that's all for now. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
Just one question. So you don't have any market evidence to show the board of sales of similar properties in the neighborhood?
I don't have any evidence at this time, no.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Ms. Billinghurst?
I have no questions.
So my question is, so when you had that previous appeal, you brought the deficiencies to the attention of the assessor, or the things that weren't there that it appeared were being recorded by the assessor. You brought that to the assessor's attention at that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So actually, in this virtual environment, they couldn't believe that the kitchen cabinets were original from 1952. So I had my laptop and I actually showed them on camera that it was original 1952. So sometimes, you know, with the real estate pictures, you can't really see too much. So yeah, I showed them I opened the door and I could, you know, they could hear the squeaking of the cabinets. And then I showed them the floor. There's several chip marks in the floor, and there's a lot of wear and tear on the floor. So yeah, I was actually, the Zoom meeting actually came to a benefit because I was actually able to prove that we didn't do any alterations since we moved in.
For this reassessment, the new reference date that all of the values need to be pinned to is April 1st of 2021. Last year, it was 2018, April 1st, 2018, so that's a 3-year difference. Perhaps to gain a better understanding of what the implications of that are, I would suggest that you talk to the assessor. We don't really have the time in these hearings, or for that matter, the mandate, to provide a lot of information to people. But I think it might be beneficial if you spoke again with the assessor, so I would just make that suggestion. Okay. Beyond that, I don't have any more questions. Does either side want to make a summation at all?
Just to sum up, basically, I feel that based on the comparables that I've presented, that the current assessment is within that range, both in sale price and in sale price per square foot. So I feel that based on that, the 2023 assessment is reasonable at the current level of the 401,000.
Okay. Ms. Applicant, any summation?
Basically, we didn't do any interior alterations. Nothing has changed since the last appeal, and yeah, I could have found comparable houses that were relatively the same in terms of, like, I would compare it more to a single car garage. The fireplace has been decommissioned. That's pretty much all I can provide today.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That concludes this item then. Thank you for your information. We will deliberate later this morning. make our decisions, and you will receive those as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much.
Moving to our next item on the docket, which is listed as number 4. That is 534 Pepperloaf Crescent.
And please state your full name. And you affirm the evidence you are present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Wright, could you provide your evidence, please?
Thank you. The subject property is roll number 0100589470. This is 534 Pepperloaf Crescent. This is a one-story house located in the Roblin Park neighborhood, built in 2008. The living area is 1,918 square feet. There is a full basement with no basement finish. There's 1 full bathroom, 2 half bathrooms, and 1 shower. There is central air conditioning, 1 fireplace, and a multiple car attached garage. The lot size is 20,024 square feet, and the current 2023 assessment is $634,000, which is $330.55 per square foot. I have 4 comparable properties here. They are located in different neighborhoods, but they're all within the Charleswood area. If you refer to the map, they're not too far apart. They're not really that close together, but I based my selection of comparables more on the year built, because in Charleswood, there are a lot of older houses. So I was looking for houses that were closer in age to the subject property. So these 4 comparables are all 1-story houses. As I had said, they were all located in Charleswood. The year built ranges from 1968 to 2012, and the effective year built ranges from 1997 to 2012. I should just add that comparable number 4 is obviously an older house, but it was renovated to bring it closer to be more similar to a newer house or a 2008 built house. The living area for these comparables ranges from 1,326 square feet to 2,543 square feet. All have full basements. Comparables 1, 2, and 4 do have basement finish, so those would require adjustments for that basement finish. The bathroom count ranges from 2 to 4.5 at the higher end. All comparables have central air conditioning, and comparables 2, 3, and 4 have fireplaces. Comparable 1 does not. All have attached multiple car garages, and comparable 1 also has a detached garage, so that would also require an adjustment. Comparable 2 has a pool, and comparable number 1 has a sunroom. So again, those 2 properties differ than the subject property in those characteristics, so those would require adjustments. The lot size for the comparables ranges from 7,140 square feet to 21,082 square feet. And the price for these properties range from $505,000 to $855,000. The time adjusted price ranged from $530,200 to $892,600. And the time adjusted price per square foot ranged from $311.33 to $441.48. So I feel that based on these comparable properties, you can see there obviously is a wide range. There aren't too many comparables that are perfectly similar to the subject property, but I do feel that based on this market evidence, the current assessment of $634,000 is supported. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Applicant, do you have some questions about this evidence? No, you have no questions. Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions.
Ms. Billinghurst?
No questions.
The question about Charleswood in general. Now, there's certainly some differences in both lot sizes, house sizes, that sort of thing. Though they are all 1 stories. Tell me a little bit about Charleswood. Some of these are fairly far west versus the other ones that are fairly far east. There is also one is that still Charleswood, Bloomer Crescent? What's Charleswood like, and how does those locational differences have any bearing on the value?
I'm honestly not too sure, kind of east versus west part of Charleswood, if there's a difference in the market that could be seen in sale prices. I'm really not too sure about that. I would say that the subject and the comparables, none of them have any significant land influences. So none are located on a higher traffic street or near commercial businesses or anything like that. So in that way that they are all residential streets, I would say they are fairly similar. And again, the reason for my selection of comparables that were maybe a bit further apart was just trying to find houses that were more similar to the subject. So I was kind of placing more weight on the age of the subject property rather than being right within a few blocks. So in my review, I kind of looked at it as all being Charleswood. I didn't really attribute differences in value to what part of Charleswood it was located in.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Applicant, your evidence, please.
Yeah, I presented, I'm sure you received, I have probably like 15 different properties in here. Some of them, they almost brand new, which they were built like 2019, 2020. And the prices are lower per square footage and even, the same similar sizes. Like lady, she said, yeah, the Charleswood is big and it's basically difficult to say where is the more expensive or not. It's like a village. It's basically, wooded bigger lots, which some people don't really like them. Some people do, like I do. I like work on the yard. Some people don't. So the size of the lot really doesn't matter that much, I would say. And a lot of these houses, I can say even like the city, for my property, every 2 years I have to fight for the property. And even certain years, the city raised by $100,000, which is outrageous, which I fought, right? But the thing is, if you look at the comparables I gave you, they are big houses. They are 2,000 square feet, they are 1,800, 1,900 square feet. And they all have ranged between $325 per square foot to even like 268. So mine is priced at 330, and it's really, up there. My house is like a fourth from the street, which is a gas station on the corner and another business. So it's not that quiet, right? We have the community center, which is the street is busy because people driving all the time. And so, for example, like the comparable on Tefel, the big house, is at the end of the street, which is quiet, that house is huge. It's almost 600 square feet. It has pool house. It's really high-end house. So I don't think we should compare that. And even then, I have comparable on my list, which is even bigger house on South Point. South Point is one of the probably best streets in Charleswood. And this house is actually on the river side, river property. It's 2,730 square feet and is priced at $811,000, which brings to $296 per square foot. And I think that house is much higher end than even the one on my street. So I would say it all depends when the house was sold or how bad somebody wanted. Because even now, a friend of mine, he's selling a house and he cannot for the lower price than somebody sold a month ago or 2 months ago for much higher price. So it's all subjective, until my house is really sold, we're never gonna know how much it's worth. So this, we can only speculate, right? So anyway, like I took my time and I, have all these comparables, which are much, much lower than mine. Some are newer, some are older, some are smaller lots, some are even bigger than mine.
Anything else?
So I feel like my house is being evaluated too high, and I would like to bring it down to to comparable to a medium like 300 per square foot or 305 per square foot would be probably more appropriate.
Ms. Wright, do you have questions for the applicant about his information?
Not about his information. I do have just one quick question. Have you ever had an appraisal done on your house or spoke to a realtor about what they feel the house would sell for or anything like that?
No, I haven't because I don't have, I'm not willing to sell yet. So
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
and my house, I built it by myself. So it's not built by a builder. It's just basically I built it over the years. So maybe it's not as high end as other houses.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. McIntyre, questions?
Just one question. I'm looking at your report that you submitted, and there is no sale date listed for these properties. Is that correct?
I didn't have, I have to go through all this. I didn't have the printer, but I put the price when it was sold and adjusted price. So it was all sold within what I could find on the internet. So.
Okay, that was my only question.
Ms. Billinghurst?
Just to follow up, do you have a date range from when these were sold?
Exactly what I was looking at. So that was 2021. I was looking at the Winnipeg website.
The city of Winnipeg?
Yeah, the sales. That's why it says sell price and adjusted sell price. This is exactly what the city provided on the website.
Thank you.
So basically the same range like here. So it's basically, I don't see it when it was sold. But it was basically from the website. So it's a current, from a current assessment time.
Just for a little verification, Ms. Wright, if the applicant was taking this from the city's listing of sales, those sales shown there are from what period?
I believe if you were using the most recent sales books, they should have been between, I believe it was 2019 up until that reference date of April 1st, 2021. I don't believe any 2018 sales were included in the sales books, so it should be between 2019 and early 2021.
Yes, I have it here. So
Yes.
It says January 1st, 2019 to April 1st, 2021. That's the period of time. That's the only one available on the Winnipeg website.
Ms. Wright, so you have no concern about these values that have been listed here. Your assumption is that these are correct?
I would assume if they were taken from those sales books, then I would assume that those should be correct, yes.
If I can also mention one thing, like some of these houses, if you look at the sale price and adjusted price, and then the assessment, city assessment for this year, they're much lower. For example, there's now Ridgedale. The house was sold for $700,000, but the city assessed right now at $572,000. So that means it's assessed lower than actually it was sold for.
We give very minimal weight to the assessments because the courts have said we must look at the sales, and so we will.
Oh yes, but I'm fighting my assessment, so obviously everybody looks at what is assessed right now, and I believe nobody will come and fight for the higher, assessment price. So there's something. If the houses are actually sold for more and the city assesses them lower, why me? It's always getting so much higher. It's just nerve-wracking. Every 2 years, it's just basically like for everybody else. It's just basically, nerve-wracking.
You have property insurance, I presume. Is that correct?
Yes.
You know the value for insurance purposes. What the
For
house
the
would
whole
be.
property, everything, I think it's $700,000.
Sorry, what?
$700,000 included the outdoor buildings and everything else.
All right, I don't have any other questions, so thank you very much. That concludes this item.
Thank you.
As I mentioned before, we will deliberate at the end of all of these hearings today, and then you will receive in the mail what our decision is.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Our next one on the docket is number 5, and that is 55 Loyola Bay.
Please state your full name.
My full name is Min Nguyễn.
And you are
Yeah.
from the evidence about present the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah, I'm returning for my property of 55 Loyola Bay and searching for the reduction in my tax. And this year my tax assessment for my properties is a little bit high. Yes.
We'll listen to your evidence shortly. At this point, you're just being sworn in.
Yes, I'm suspecting you for apology.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
okay,
do.
thank you.
I will always tell the truth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, could we turn to you for your evidence about this property, please?
Sure, thank you. The subject property is roll number 03043056000. This is 55 Loyola Bay.
Yes.
This is a bi-level style of house in the Fort Richmond neighborhood, built in 1968 with an effective year built of 1968. It is 804 square feet with a finished basement. There are 1.5 bathrooms. There is central air conditioning, no fireplace, and no garage. The assessed lot size is 7,195 square feet, and the current 2023 assessment is $318,000 or $395.52 per square foot. This property most recently sold in 2015 for $287,000. I have 4 comparable properties here that are all bi-levels in Fort Richmond. The year built and effective year built range from 1965 to 1973. The living area ranged from 804 square feet to 1,066 square feet. All have full basements with basement finish. All have between 1.5 to 2 bathrooms, central air conditioning, and no fireplace. Comparables 3 and 4 do have single car attached garages, so adjustments would be required for that. The lot size of these properties ranges from 5,608 square feet to 6,580 square feet. Comparable number 3 has a light traffic influence, but the other 3 comparables have no significant external influences. The sale price for these properties range from $312,500 to $345,000. This gives us a time-adjusted price range of $328,900 to $355,600, or a time-adjusted price per square foot ranging from $308.54 to $439.80. So I feel that based on these 4 comparable properties, that the current assessment of $318,000 is supported. Thank you.
So Mr. Wynn, do you have any questions of the assessor about this information that she just presented?
No, but I have another question about my city assessment, about my the same information. I didn't see my information over here. In this
Yeah, that's her information. Do you have a question about that?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll wait for your evidence shortly. We'll see if there's other questions first.
All right.
Mr. McIntyre, question?
I have no question. Thank you.
No questions.
These properties all have living areas that are varying from 804 to just over 1,000 square feet. So building code is single dwelling. So these are single detached dwellings. These are not multiple units, that sort of thing. They're all single detached.
Yes, they're all detached houses.
Okay. And with respect to location, your comparables are all down, getting towards the bottom of Fort Richmond. This one is up at the top. Any significant difference locationally?
No, I feel that comparables 1, 3, and 4 are the most similar to the subject, both in location. They're all kind of within a fairly small area there at the south part of Fort Richmond. Comparable 2, I would say both size and location. It is quite a bit further north, and it's larger than the other properties. So I feel like that would be the least similar comparable. But 1, 3, and 4 are within a fairly small area, so I feel that they would be similar to the subject property.
So Mr. Wynn, could you give us your information, please?
Yeah, I was a student back then. I owned the house for 6 years already. And it was my first time seeking for the tax reduction this year. And when I was in school, I already paid in 2015 and 2016. My tax assessment were only 25 to 2600, and that time I were affordable. And my city assessment at that time were 295, and in 2017, I remember like $303,000, $303,000 city assessment in 2017 and 2018. And in this year, I received last year I received a new city assessment at $318,000. So which is just increased for 15 to 18% in the last 5 or 6 years. And but my tax and my property tax increased significantly. In 2019, I still pay off every year city assessment. City assessment give me the bill, I pay them off because it was I have steady job and everything, but the pandemic hit me, and I have suffered from like physically, emotionally, and I lost 3 jobs. And at that time, I just graduated from my university, and COVID hit. It's impossible for me to find any job to maintain my bills, and I suffer enough. And
if I could, sorry, just to break in and try to steer you into the type of information that we need.
Yeah.
We cannot, we're not allowed to pay any attention to taxes. And for that matter, as I mentioned before, we can't make use of other properties' assessments. We must take a look at the sales that went on. That's the market. Because the assessments are supposed to reflect the market. So what the courts have said to us is, you've got to go and look at the market to see comparable places and what they sold for, like the assessor has presented here. So the sort of information that sometimes people bring to us about their assessments or their taxes is something that we really can't take into account when we're deciding on what the value of the property is. We need to know things like what is the condition of the property? Is it in very good condition, not good condition? Are there problems with it? What do you think it ought to be valued at for assessment purposes, that type of thing?
Yeah, my house is pretty old. It's in 1968, and when I bought it in 2015, I had to renew it once in 2015, 2016, and until now I always fix, but usually by myself. So I'm not actually having any bills, but the house is in a good condition right now by my taking care, and the total wear fit. I'm not gonna using all of them. I just live in my house, right? So the around areas is not useful for me, and my location is located in the middle behind Sobeys and other convenience store. But they were built back in 2018, and surrounded me by school and high school surrounded me. I'm not using any benefit from those things. Only to go for my groceries behind the Sobeys. That is the most convenient, and otherwise I don't use any other assessment near my house. So usually the tax this year 3,500 or 3,600. Yeah. And because of COVID sufferings, I haven't finished my payment yet, but I will try to apply for tip programs in this year to finish it up. I'm off. And otherwise than that, and my neighbor near my house, they just all move. The neighbor next to me, his house was sold for 398 after the discussion, and his house assessment were 312. That's what I heard from him, and that's going to be affect my assessment as well. And because I'm not selling my house, so I'm not earning any money.
Right. Ms. Wright, do you have questions about the information that has been presented?
I have no questions. Thank you.
McIntyre?
I just have one question. You mentioned Sobeys. How far is if you go to the assessor's map? If you go to the assessor's map, it shows your property.
Yes. I see my property on the map right now.
Right. And so is the Sobeys on Pembina Highway?
I'm behind Sobe. The Sobe facing the Pembina Highway, and my house behind it, like 5 minutes walking. And other than that, I'm not using any others like high school and another school, a lot of convenience store over here, but I'm not using all of them for my own purposes. And
but you're not directly backing onto Sobeys, are you?
Yeah, no.
No. Okay, that was my only question.
Yeah.
Ms. Billinghurst?
I have no questions.
So the water pipe was damaged once last couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and my house suffered no water for like 3 days. The water pipe from not my fault. The root of the trees were hitting the pipe and it's leaking out, and that's why my water bill was so high at that time. And yeah, and that's the only thing I remember.
Thank you. Well, that concludes this item on our agenda. Thank you very much for coming. As I said before, we will be deliberating later on this morning, coming up with our decisions, and then you will receive that in the mail from the city.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
This is my first time. I try my best. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Item number 6 on our agenda is 1223 Wellington Crescent. Could we have the swearing in there?
Please state your full name. And you are from Devon to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yes.
Okay, Ms. Wright, when you are ready, could we have your evidence?
Okay, thank you. The subject property is roll number 1209-7653-200. This is 1223 Wellington Crescent. It is a 2-story house located in the Wellington Crescent neighborhood, built in 1949 with an effective year built of 1959. The living area is 4,616 square feet. It has a full part area basement. So that means that there's an addition on the house that does not have basement under it. So there's just the full basement under the original house. That full basement area is finished. In the house, there are what we consider 3 full bathrooms, 2 half bathrooms, and 2 showers. There's a multiple car attached garage and an in-ground swimming pool. The lot size is 23,342 square feet, and it's located on the river side of Wellington Crescent, so it is Assiniboine adjacent and has a light traffic influence. The current 2023 assessment is $1,649,000, which is $357.24 per square foot. So I have 4 comparable properties here. There are not that many properties that sold that are that are that similar to the subject property. So it is difficult to review comparables and come up with an appropriate market value assessment for this property. How I selected my comparables was I looked for 2 or 2.5 story houses that were also located along the river on Wellington Crescent. So that's the reason for my selection of these comparables. So they're all either 2 or 2.5 story. Comparable 2 is a 2.5 story, located on Wellington Crescent. The year built, they're all older than the subject properties. So the year built range from 1911 to 1929, with an effective year built range from 1935 to 1966. The area of the houses, again, there was a wide range, 2,646 square feet to 6,252 square feet. All properties have either a full or a full part area basement. The comparables 1, 3, and 4 have basement finish, but comparable 2 has an unfinished basement. The bathroom count for these properties ranged from 3 bathrooms to 4 full and 2 half bathrooms at the higher end. All have central air conditioning except for the 4th comparable. All have fireplaces ranging from 1 to 3 counts of fireplaces. All properties except for comparable number 2 have attached garages, and comparable 1 has an in-ground swimming pool, but the other 3 comparables do not. Again, with the lot size, there's a fairly wide range at 16,350 square feet to 52,125 square feet. And then as expected, the sale price for these properties, there was a wide range again, ranging from $990,000 to $1,837,500, which gives us a time-adjusted sale price range from $1,073,200 to $1,837,500, and this is a time-adjusted price per square foot range from $190.55 to $405.59. I did inspect the property with Mr. Clark on June 21st. And confirmed all of the characteristics that we have on file. And he had mentioned during our inspection that it was last renovated approximately 25 years ago. So I confirmed that the house has those older renovations, I believe, from when the addition was built on the back, but it is not newly renovated or anything like that. So, I mean, like I've said, there aren't that many comparables that are perfectly similar to the subject property, so it is difficult to determine the assessed value. So I feel that the current assessment is within that range at the $357.24 per square foot. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what the assessment should be, to be honest, but I feel like it's within the range of the comparable properties.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clark, do you have questions about this?
No, not at this point.
All right. Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Billinghurst?
No questions.
So all of these are along the river.
Yes.
All of these properties have houses that certainly don't have current effective years built. So although some work obviously has been done to them, it varies. And they are still 50, 70 more years old in terms of effective year built. Tell me about the value of the property along the river. Now, like, you don't separate land value from building value, but how much to what extent ought we to be looking at the fact that these are all along the river compared with the subject? What is that attractive? Are there downsides to being on the river? What can you tell us?
I'm sure that's one of those things that depends on the buyer. I mean, I would say typically if you looked at sale prices or even any land sales that we have, typically the riverside does sell for a higher price, which is part of the reason that I wanted to choose comparables that were along the river on Wellington. I mean, to some people, being on the river may be a negative. That's difficult to say. It depends on the buyer, but I would say overall in the market, that if you look at sale prices, they are typically higher on the river side of the street.
Can you just mention again, to the extent that the value of the subject was brought up from 1949 to 59, just 10 years, much less than any of the others, that was attributable to what?
There are different levels of renovation. So I believe that effective year built, that 10-year effective age was added to the subject property. It would have been when the addition was built, which was quite a number of years ago. I don't have the exact date here. And then the comparable properties, again, there's a range. I mean, I would say comparables 1 and 2 are fairly similar to the subject property. But then when you look at comparable 2, it's a different style of house and it's the oldest comparable. So it's kind of a different type of house, which can be hard to compare as well. Comparable 3, I would say, is actually more recently renovated than the subject property. So that 40-year effective age would be attributed to that more recent renovation for that property. And then I will note that comparable 4, it actually, and I included it because of the lack of comparables on the river, it actually did not sell on MLS. It was a private sale, and we had we sent out a questionnaire to the buyers to just kind of fill out and update our characteristics, but that is relying on information that came from the buyers of the property. It was not listed on MLS, so I would tend to maybe put less weight on that comparable 4, just since it was not exposed to the open market, but I decided to include it just for some more information since there were quite a lack of comparables along the river.
Would that one have then been used in your modeling, or would it have been kicked out as a non-valid sale?
I'm not 100% sure. I believe it may have been included just because we did send that questionnaire out to the buyers. So we did have some information, although it wasn't on the open market, we did have some information about the sale and just that there were no odd financing conditions or anything like that. So we were able to confirm that type of thing with that questionnaire.
Okay. So comparable number 4, there's some questions about it because it was a private sale. Number 3, you said had some fairly substantial renovations, which brought it up by 40 years. Yeah. Do you know when those renovations were and how current that stuff is?
I just have in my notes here that it was more recently renovated. I can try to log in and look at the listing quickly if you'd like me to.
If you don't mind.
Sure. Just bear with me for one moment here while I get logged in. Okay, so it does list just a few items. So it says things like furnace shingles 2014. It doesn't actually say the year that the majority of the renovations were completed, but just from quickly looking at the photos here, I would definitely say more recent than the subject property. So I would say probably just best guess, probably closer to the 2010 to 2015 year, somewhere around there, as opposed to around 25 years ago for the subject property.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's all my questions. Turning to Mr. Clark for your evidence.
Okay. Just on that last one, 1209, it probably was in the last 6 or 7 years they did a very major addition and renovated the whole house. So it's probably 5-7 years now. on that, just to clarify.
On which one?
On the one you were asking, the 1209, number 3.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to come speak to your meeting. I needed to understand better how the process works because it just wasn't making sense to me that my house was all of a sudden had a higher value of 22%. I have not done any renovations to it. It needs 2 major ones right now, and that is it needs a new cedar shake roof, which is very expensive. It also needs all of the windows redone at this point after the 25 years because they're popping and fogging up, and most of them have already had some work done on. Anyways, so things weren't making sense to me that all of a sudden there's a 22% jump. I wanted to understand it better, especially my old home directly across the street in the same block. And I understand this isn't all of it, but it was up only 6%, and we're in the same block. And one's on one side of the street. So it was saying to me that 22 didn't seem to make sense. And there was another thing, a house that has sold just 2 doors away. It's got bigger square footage than mine, 59 years newer, and yet its value is only 72% of my assessment. So that sale wasn't used in the comparison, and perhaps it should have been considered. Anyways, my house, a couple of other minor things here. Realtor.com defines a full bath as having 4 separate parts: sink, shower, bathtub, and toilet. So I use that definition. Mine has only 2 full baths. It's described in the notice as 3. So I think that should be corrected. Also, another correction would be my house has 1 working fireplace, not the 2 that are noted, because Wikipedia defines a fireplace as a framed opening in a chimney to hold an open fire. I only have 1 open fireplace. I have 2 others, but they're just the wood fireplace on the wall that just has an insert. One doesn't do anything, it's logs, and that's it. So I think it should only be rated as 1, but again, I don't understand all the rules. It was brought up, and thank you. The house has a basement only under the original 1949 house, and only part of that, not the full part, is developed. There is a rec room in that part of the old house, a hallway to it and so on, but the other rooms are furnace rooms, a work room, and some tools and so on, not developed in the way I think you're defining it. The addition done 25 years ago was basically 1 big room with an open floor loft in it. And I think that's why the house is getting penalized. It has this 1 big addition, which is very nice, and it overlooks the river. But it's on a crawl space, as mentioned, not basement. So the basement is quite small. The rec room is quite small. It holds a snooker table, and that's it, with a couple of chairs around. So I just wanted to clarify, the basement was not fully developed wall to wall downstairs. The comps that we've got, the 755 Wellington, it's about the same sale value as used for my valuation, but the lot is 62% bigger. And on the river, that makes it much nicer when you've got more trees and area. So I didn't feel it was a direct comparison. Nominal interior extra square footage, which isn't really relevant, I guess. Fully finished basement versus mine, which is only partial. So on that one, I didn't think it was a fair comparable, especially because of the lot being 62% bigger. The comp 2, 951 Wellington, same reason actually on comparison. The land area is 237%, not quite 2.5 times my lot size. So,
Sorry, which property?
That's 951 Wellington, number 2.
Number 2, this says 703 Wellington.
Oh, but, well, that's another issue, and I think the committee should consider that going forward. I was working off the comparison report that I was given by the city until I walked in this morning, and then there's a different report, and I should have been given that ahead of time if I wanted to do research on it for future use. Anyway, so yeah, it's 951 on here. No, I guess it's been deleted. Okay, but the one that the city was using up to this point this morning when I walked in was the lot size almost 2.5 times as big. So much nicer property. Anyways, and maybe these are irrelevant now. My old comp 3, which was 703, had a major renovation. The realtor told me, and the land was 16% more, which I guess isn't bad. Anyway, I just wonder why the most comparable sale, in my view, is the one 2 doors away. And the house is bigger and, as I say, 59 years newer, and yet it's only assessed at 72% of my assessment. And again, this one is a sale. It's not just me comparing assessments that I know are not supposed to be used. And that was the main, the main argument, that mine seemed to get overvalued, but because of this extra 1 room square footage, it was getting penalized at the higher rates. I think that's probably all. I've got some other comments. Yeah, it was the corrections on my detail, and I think that's it.
Ms. Wright, questions of this information?
Just one question. I know you had mentioned when we spoke that you were kind of speaking with realtors and maybe an appraiser. So did they ever give you any indication of where they felt the value should be?
My realtor said I wouldn't be able to, in his view, get what the assessment is at this point, but the amount, who knows of that, 100 or 200. I thought the house was fairly assessed before, of course, and in the range that I would get for it.
Okay, so the previous assessment from the last reassessment.
I thought that was fair. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Billingers?
Sorry, no, my question's been answered, but it's good information. Thank you.
Ms. Wright, why would Mr. Clark be looking at different comparables now than what he had been provided before?
So yeah, I apologize. I actually slipped my mind that I had sent you some different comparables, and then through reviewing information, I decided, I believe it was just one of them that changed. So the ones I'm using today were what was submitted to the board on Monday. I'm not sure when that was distributed to the appellants. So from our previous discussions from around the time when I had inspected the property, I did change one of those comparables.
And are you familiar with that sale 2 doors away, and why might that one not have been one of your comparables?
Off the top of my head, I think I may know which property. Do you happen to have the address, or do you know when that sale occurred?
It's in the last year, about I think 6 or 8 months ago, and it sold for $1.2 million. And the address is, no, so,
900s.
I think it's 1237.
So it's that it was past our reference date of April 1st, 2021, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, now that's the one that's so much newer, and it says air conditioning, no, but it has air conditioning. There's 2 big units on the front of the house, on the driveway, and so on. So.
Okay, if it is 1237, I found it here, and it sold in September of 2021. So that would be why I wouldn't have reviewed that sale, is because I was limited to looking at sales that occurred prior to April 1st of 2021.
I see. It seemed to be more appropriate to my value in that it's 2 doors away rather than the ones down at the other end of the street with much larger lots. This one, more square footage, I think a little less land area.
Both we and the assessors are required to not look at something after the reference date. For fairness sake, everything has to be valued at that reference date, so that everybody's sort of looking at a valuation at a common point in time. Anything after that, we're not allowed to look at.
I didn't know it was outside your perimeter.
Right. Those are my questions. So that then concludes this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. You will get
Thank
your
you.
answer in the mail as quickly as possible.
Fair enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That brings us to number 7 on the docket, and that is 139 Grenfell Boulevard.
I'm adding him in to the hearing right now. Okay, Mr. Applicant, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Please state your full name.
Thomas Rempel Ong.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Wright, when you are ready, could we have your evidence, please?
Okay, thank you. The subject property is roll number 1000311600. This is 139 Grenfell Boulevard. It's a 2-story house located in Old Tuxedo. The year built is 1935 and the effective year built is 1980. The living area is 4,336 square feet. This house has a full part area basement with basement finish, 1 full bathroom, 3 half bathrooms, and 3 showers. There is central air, 3 fireplaces, and a multiple car attached garage. There is no pool, but there is a sunroom. The lot size is 14,995 square feet, and it's located on an external corner. The current 2023 assessment is $1,618,000, which is $373.15 per square foot. The property did sell fairly recently in June of 2020 for $1,525,000. And we did actually review this property during our preliminary review before the 2023 assessment roll was created. And at that point, we did actually lower the assessment to the subject time adjusted sale price. So the current assessment is $1,618,000, which is the subject time adjusted price. So I have 4 comparable properties here that are all 2 stories located in Old Tuxedo. The year built ranges from 1929 to 1951. The effective year built ranges from 1957 to 1999. Living area ranges from 2,140 square feet to 3,668 square feet. All properties have either a full or full part area basement with some basement finish. The bathroom count ranges from 2.5 at the low end to 3 full and 2 half at the higher end. All comparable properties have central air conditioning and fireplaces, ranging from 2 to 3 fireplaces. All have garages, so I'll just go over. There's kind of some variability. So the first one has a multiple car attached garage. The second comparable has a detached garage. The third comparable has an attached single and a detached single. And comparable 4 has an attached multiple car garage. Comparable number 2 has a pool, but the other comparables do not. The lot size ranges from 9,747 square feet to 19,496 square feet. Comparables 1 and 4 are also located on an external corner. Comparable 4 faces Assiniboine Park, which is the regional park influence. So that typically would be considered a superior external influence. So an adjustment would be required because typically properties that face the park would sell for a bit higher. Now the sale price for these properties range from $808,117 to $1.6 million. Time adjusted sale price range from $846,100 to $1.6 million. And time adjusted sale price per square foot from $389.31 to $454.09. So I feel that based on both the 4 comparables I've presented, as well as the subject sale that occurred in 2020, I feel that the current 2023 assessment at $1.618 million is supported by market evidence. Thank you.
Much. Mr. Rempel Ong, do you have questions about this information?
Yes, I just have a couple of questions relating to comparable 4, the one on Park Boulevard. When I look at the residential sales report, the registration date appeared to be blacked out, and I see below it the MLS sale date was March 29th. Is there a reason why we don't have a registration date for that property sale?
Yeah, so what that comes down to, and we've kind of discussed this in the department this year. So we're looking at a reference date of April 1st of 2021. So that means we can only consider sales that occurred up till that date. Typically, the date we have on file, the registration date, is the date that sales are registered at land titles. But that does become, I mean, if sales that occurred months prior to that April 1st, 2021 date, it's really not an issue because sales typically come through a few months later. But we determined that the date a sale actually occurs, so when a value was agreed on, is the date that should be used. Possession can be, I mean, in some scenarios, possession could be many months later, so it's not really reflective of the market at that point. So that's why I excluded that registration date, is because it was past our reference date, but the actual sale date occurred just, 2 days before our reference date on March 29th of 2021. So I felt that it was a valid sale. It's just that registration date occurred a bit later.
And then my other question, because you brought up that that Park Boulevard location is adjacent to Assiniboine Park. Given that location, how do you account for, I guess, the added value that it is literally across the street from Assiniboine Park? Because I see, obviously, because the sale date was March 29th, there isn't a time-adjusted sale price difference because it was only 2 days or 3 days. But then you briefly mentioned that some adjustment might be required. So how do you determine that, I guess, location premium, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, our assessment model would add value to properties that are located on a regional park like that. So it is something that would add value to that property. So basically, to compare it to your property, that's the land value would be a bit less because you're not on the park versus that comparable that is on the park. I don't have an exact number for you. To have an exact number, you would need to look at market evidence and look at similar houses that sold on the park versus not on the park to kind of come up with what the market pays for that type of property and that type of location. So that would be something that would be considered better or superior for that property, but I don't have an exact number of how much that would affect the market value.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have for the assessor.
Okay. Mr. McIntyre?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Villiers?
I have no questions.
And I have none. So, Mr. Rempel-Ong, could we have your evidence?
Sure. So I guess to begin, I know this is a bit of a might be a unique situation because of how recent the purchase of the property was, but ultimately I did purchase the property in June of 2020, and there already was a supplementary assessment change that the city, I guess, applied for, which I then took to a previous sitting of the Board of Revision. So in the documents that I provided, page 1 and 2 are a copy of that previous Board of Revision order. So essentially, when I had purchased the property, the city had argued that the assessed value should have been increased to $1,392,000, and then in the board meeting on November 23rd, 2020, they brought that down to $1,300,000. And I felt it was relevant to quote from that previous decision where they indicated they were decreasing the supplementary realty assessment to bring in line with market value as follows. And that's where that $1,300,000 was provided. So as my first concern here is that decision was made in November of 2020, and yet to determine the, I guess, market value on April 1st, 2021, that value has been completely ignored. Now, I guess in terms of actual comparables that I would present myself, I would use actually my neighboring property, which is 135 Grenfell Boulevard. So in pages 4 and 5 of my submission, I included sales information that my realtor was able to obtain. So essentially 135 Grenfell is the property directly to my north. So on the assessor's map, there's Nanton Boulevard, then my property 139 Grenfell, and then 135 is just above that. So 135 Grenfell Boulevard sold on November 5th, 2020. So fairly close to the April 1st, 2021, I guess, assessment date. And of note, the property was listed at $1,249,000. It sold for $1,140,000. So $100,000 reduction from the list price. And by my calculation, that sale price works out to a dollar per square foot value of $245. So in terms of, I guess, trying to calculate what would be a market comparable, on page 6 of my submission, this is a printout of an Excel spreadsheet I use, and I essentially calculated a dollar per square foot value using primarily 135 Grenfell, but also 39 Nanton Boulevard. However, I adjusted 39 Nanton Boulevard to take into account the fact that that property has 5,000 square feet of additional land. And I guess to note, 135 Park North also has that same additional land. So essentially, these two larger properties have enough additional land that in another neighborhood, that 5,000 square feet would be the size of a building lot. So on page 6, I found two properties. They are in Charleswood, where they were sales of vacant land. I tried to find sale properties where there wasn't an existing structure that would have been demolished, because I wanted to try and figure out what is the market value of just land. So with those properties, I calculated a market value of vacant land of $63.99. And when I multiplied that by the additional land on 39 Nanton, that got a market value of this extra land of $287,972.71. So I would argue, as part of my submission, that a sizable part of the value of 39 Nanton and 135 Park, which the city is using as comparables, is that additional land. Now, I only found out that 135 Park was going to be a comparable last night, so I haven't been able to do any calculation myself on what the additional value of being next to Assiniboine Park is, but at least I can provide this calculation to try and show what that additional 5,000 square feet of land would be worth. So at the bottom of page 6, I've listed the sale price and price per square foot of 139 Grenfell, which is the property in question, as well as 135 Grenfell, 39 Nanton, adjusting to account for the excess land. And then the other two properties, 328 Oxford and 6 Eastgate, I selected those because of the age of those properties, the fact they were in real estate market 7, which is similar to my house, and just to show that in those cases, one property sold for a higher price per square foot than 135 Grenfell, one sold for less. And in the case of 328 Oxford and 6 Eastgate, those properties were both early 2021. So as close to the assessment date as I could get. And when I took the average price per square foot of those peer properties, multiplied it by the living area at 139 Grenfell, I get an adjusted market value of $1,052,054.14. So I wanted to explain how all of those figures in the Excel spreadsheet worked out. So ultimately, I feel that the city's proposal or assessment of $1,618,000 is excessive, primarily because of the sale of my neighbor. Given how timely that is, I feel that should be given prominence as well, given the fact that I would argue that the city's main comparables are significantly larger in size, and adjustment has to be made to take into account the 5,000 extra square feet of lot property. And at this point, I'd be happy to take any questions from the board and from the assessor.
Ms. Wright, do you have questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions. So you had gone over your last page here of your evidence where you were doing adjustments for the lot area. Were you accounting for differences in size of the living area of the houses? For example, 39 Nanton is over 600 square feet smaller than your house. So were you adjusting for that difference at all?
So what I calculated there was I simply divided the sale price by the living area to get a price per square foot. And then when I calculated the price per square foot of the other properties, I took the price per square foot amount and averaged it between the 4 other properties. So to try and account for the fact that, yes, for example, 39 Nanton is smaller, I wanted to calculate, well, what was the market value per square foot of the house? Because obviously when these kinds of houses, the difference in square footage is quite substantial. So I figured the fairest way to try and calculate a value was to go down to the granular price per square foot level.
Okay, and so you included comparables, the last 2 on your list from Oxford Street and Eastgate. So they're in Region 7, but they're in different neighborhoods. Is there a reason that you feel that those would be more comparable to your property than houses that are in Old Tuxedo?
Well, I use those because of the date, and also, I guess, at issue in Old Tuxedo is house sales aren't all that common. I mean, to use your comparables, one was from August of 2019 and one was from August of 2020. So I was trying to find comparables where I could look at the price per square footage of an older house as close to the date as possible. And also taking into account that, I guess, in a sense, these are properties where they don't have a sizable benefit like 135 Park being next to Assiniboine Park.
Okay. And just one last question. So is there any reason why, so you purchased your house in June of 2020. Is there any reason that sale price would not be market value? Like, were there any anything included or anything that affected that sale price at all that would?
Well, I guess there will be 2 main factors I could see. One was at the time of the sale, we had made it subject to a home inspection, but as the home inspection was occurring, the selling agent indicated that there was another potential buyer who was looking to buy the property. So at the time, we felt we didn't want to try and get into a situation where we risked losing the home purchase because we were adamant on a home inspection and this other person might not. And then we realized subsequently to moving in that there were, I guess, issues with the house that if we had more time, we might have tried to negotiate a much lower purchase price. Among them, in the sales listing, which I noticed you provided, it references that there was a wine fridge. The seller took the wine fridge when she moved out of the house. So literally, we just had a empty wall space where the wine fridge was. Technically, the house has 3 fireplaces, but after we moved in, we had a fireplace, I guess, maintenance professional look at the different fireplaces, and only one of the 3 fireplaces is actually safe to use and actually meets code. The primary fireplace, if you will, that was promoted in the sales listing doesn't have a liner, and the professional we brought in to inspect the fireplaces wouldn't provide us a price tag to bring it up to code because, as he indicated, it was built with an original brick chimney from 1935, and in his opinion, if we wanted to try and make it usable and meet current code, the only way to do that is we would have to disassemble a large part of the fireplace, like remove the brickwork, to install the required liner and then rebuild that structure, which we're not comfortable taking on. The third fireplace, which is in the basement, we actually had to remove a wall-mounted fireplace insert to actually find this fireplace. And someone, I don't know if it was the previous owner or an even earlier one, sealed off the top of the, I guess, that fireplace chimney with rigid styrofoam and spray foam. So I just don't know if that's even safe to use, because I assume before I would try and use it for firewood, I would have to remove all the spray foam to make sure that there's no toxic air pollution. And these were things that we discovered after moving in, which we don't, my wife and I, we just don't want to try and bring in lawyers to try and recoup things after the fact. But ultimately, these were things where, had we had known in advance, we would have argued for a lower purchase price.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
McIntyre?
No, my question has been answered.
Ms. Billinghurst?
No questions.
Well, I have no questions of the applicant, but I want to turn back to the assessor. The value that you came up with for the assessment was derived, I take it, from the sale price and then doing a time adjustment of that price. So this is not a modeled amount. This is actually using just that one value and time adjusting it. Is that correct?
Yes, so the model amount was actually higher. I don't have that offhand, what the model was calculating, but it came up during our reviews that we did when we were creating the assessment roll, and it was reviewed, and it was decided that since there had been a recent sale and that time adjusted sale price fell within the range of other comparables as well, it was decided to set the value at the time adjusted sale price.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions. Any summation that either side wants to make?
Just basically to sum up, I mean, I feel that based on the comparables I have that are in Old Tuxedo, and just based on that subject sale, that the current assessment of 1.618 million is supported with market evidence.
Thank you. Mr. Rampalong?
Well, and as my submission, if we want to discuss market comparables, we have to take into account 135 Grenfell. It's my neighboring property, very similar square footage, and it's sold for only $1,140,000. So I would argue, with respect to using this April 1st, 2021 assessment date, I don't see how we can justify an increase in assessed value of $500,000 in the 1 to 6 months. At the very least, I believe the assessment value of 139 should be in line with the market value sale of 135 Grenfell, because ultimately the two houses are right next door to each other with similar square footage.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes this item on our docket. We will be deliberating and coming up with our order, which you will receive in the mail as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.